Hey everyone, hope you're doing well. Now I don't do a whole lot of discontinued knife reviews on my channel, but when I got this guy in, I thought it was definitely cool enough that it deserved its own review. So of course here we are talking about the Spyderco Leafstorm, which is a very cool modern knife that came out a few years ago from Spyderco. So before we start looking at the exact knife itself, let's talk a little bit about the history of this particular knife in general. So some of you guys may not be aware that this is actually a knife that was modeled after a Kevin Wilkins knife called his Leafstorm, a custom knife. And for those of you who may not know, if you've heard about the name Wilkins in the knife industry, you know that is synonymous with things like custom handle scales and even some knife designs that he's come out with in recent years. So if you think back to all the different Griptilian scales and Spyderco scales, Kevin, he really made a name for himself in the industry with all of his custom G10 and titanium handle scales that he came out with over the years, which were highly sought after and demanded a pretty high price across the market, even in secondhand sales. So if we take a look here, I have a couple pictures to show you guys. Of course, here on the top we have the Spyderco version of the Leafstorm, and on the bottom we have the original, which was the Kevin Wilkins version here. And as you can see, they're very similar in design. I believe this particular version of the Leafstorm was called the lightweight version in the Wilkins design. But you can see it had very similar colored G10, and the size and shape even had a opening hole there, which is very reminiscent of a Spyderco design. So let's go ahead and just take another look at the other side of the blade here. And as you can see from a custom knife there on the bottom, it has a little more flair to it. You can see the titanium there has a little bit of not anodizing, but kind of a heat treat that was done on it to kind of get the color effect to come out there on the titanium locking bar. But otherwise, knives are very similar in shape and design. So without any ado, let's go ahead and start taking a look at the actual knife itself. So let's go ahead and roll in the Spyderco version here of the Leafstorm. So let me change my angle just a tad here for you guys. So what do we have here? We have the Spyderco Leafstorm, and this was produced, this one was January 2010 there from the date code. If some of you guys don't know there, on your Spyderco knives, they usually have a production code, two-letter code right there, which you can tell the first letter being the month, the second letter being the year, if you count from, I believe it's 2010 on is when they started doing this type of design or notation with their knives. So the Leafstorm was produced, as far as I can tell, around late 2009, maybe early 2010, and was discontinued by 2012. So it only had a couple-year run. It wasn't around for very long. I assume it just, didn't sell super well for Spyderco, as some of their models do, and when they don't, unfortunately, they get rid of them pretty quickly. So for some of you guys out there who, are collectors and, like particular knives or versions of knives, if it's kind of different, a little bit edgy, go ahead and pick it up while you can, because there's a good chance that knife will not be around for, a long period of time. So here's the actual knife itself, the Leafstorm, and I have to say, amongst the Spyderco groups and collectors, these are very popular knives. So they're small. So you can see here, it's only about a 2.5-inch blade, and they're lightweight, only weigh about 2.5 ounces, and have a titanium frame lock design. So you can see here that has this very nice natural G10 handle scale, which has kind of become more popular in the last year or two due to some of the versions that Spyderco has come out with on the Paramilitary 2 model. They had a Blade HQ exclusive model, which had a natural G10 handle scale. that was pretty popular. So you see this coming to be more popular here in recent years. So let's go ahead and show you guys the blade here on this guy. So again, we have about 2.5 inch blade. This is CPM S30V, and this is wearing one of my mirror polish edges. This came in for service and some repair, so we'll talk about that in a minute here, specifically as to what I did to help this knife out, because when I got it, it was in pretty rough shape, guys. So I guess we'll go ahead and just talk about that now. So when I got this knife in, the edge had been, sharpened at probably 2 or 3 different angles. It definitely needed some love to be evened up there. And the tip was pretty blunt on it. The tip had been rounded off at one point in time. So I went ahead and repointed the tip of this knife. In addition to that, this knife had some weird locking issues. For a very small, frame lock design, this knife had lock rock up and down, so if you move the blade this way, you could hear it making a clicking sound back and forth. And it also had side-to-side play. And I took the knife apart and cleaned it, and put it back together. Also, I should mention that the blade centering heavily favored the G10 handle scale side on this knife. It was very off-center, which I believe had something to do with the locking issues on this knife. So with frame locks and liner locks, this geometry between the lock and the tang of the blade is very specific, and it's set up a certain way from the factory. It's kind of a ramp design, and the engagement point is designed to be just this very top left corner. The entire lock bar face of this lock is not supposed to come in full contact with the tang of this knife. In cases when you have that happen, you'll often have lock stick and things like that, and the function of the lock will not be very good. So given that I was able to get the centering issue pretty much resolved on this knife, much of the lock issues also sorted themselves out, which I was very happy to see. So you can see there the centering's pretty good. It maybe favors the left side there just a little bit, but it's definitely what I would consider to be acceptable. And in terms of disengagement here, there's no lock stick, very smooth. You can hear that. Let's see, lock up here is just about 50%, which is a good spot for a knife like this. I don't really think this knife will move too much more in time, but yeah, this is a really nice, small, easy to carry EDC knife. I believe in Spyderco's description they said this knife was designed to be carried in a coin or watch pocket in your pants, so I think that would fit in there perfectly just like that. The stock on the blade there is not overly thick also. It's, probably about maybe 3 to 4 millimeters there, which is not bad at all, given the size of this knife. But, so yeah, if you guys can get your hands on one of these, you might be interested in picking one up. It feels good in hand. It's kind of a 3-fingered knife, I guess you could say. There's really no room for your pinky on the handle there. You can choke up a little bit in this area, which works okay. My only concern is that your finger's getting kind of close to the blade here, this corner. And the corner of this blade here is, that's a sharp corner there. So I'd be a little concerned of, your index finger pressing up into that edge if you're, working with the knife in kind of any hard cutting tasks. The jimping on the top of the blade here is sharp, but it doesn't really provide a ton of traction. Your thumb, slides on it fairly easy. I would say it's, it's okay. It's not fantastic, but it does give you a little bit of purchase there on the knife if you need that. So Interestingly, they put the hole for the lanyard kind of towards the middle, or not the middle, but away from the end of the knife, kind of towards more the middle, for a lanyard hold here, which you can put a keychain through or whatever you want if you're interested in putting a lanyard on this knife, which is kind of unique. You know, it's something we don't really see a whole lot, having a lanyard tube in this portion of the knife. But other than that, guys, the attention to detail is quite nice. I don't know if you can see here, there's a little bit of milling around the lock bar here and the edge of the knife. It's kind of chamfered all the way around the knife here, which gives it just a nice little detail, just kind of a finished look there, which you know, I think people appreciate. Of course, this was a U.S. produced knife in Golden, Colorado, and you can see the, if my camera will focus, the Wilkins logo there. But yeah, you know, just a nice little EDC knife. You know, not gonna scare anybody with this. It's kind of upscale, kind of modern in design, with the natural G10 handle. Has a nice little 2.5-inch hollow ground blade. You know, easy to carry, easy to deploy, and you know, really quite elegant in terms of its overall design. So I'll give you one last look at the edge here, and we'll do a little cut test here for you guys. I know you guys like those. I believe the angle on this came out to be around 20 degrees, maybe 19. Not super thin, but nonetheless took a very nice edge. So I'll go ahead and do a little cut here for you guys. Bring you up just a tad for this. But S30V takes a nice edge. Let's see what we got here, huh? There you go. Nice and sharp. Great edge for a little, very useful utility knife. So there you have it, guys. This is the Spyderco Leafstorm.